we're going to go into our first featured reader, which will be Jacob.
Is Jacob significantly shorter than you? Okay.
Jacob Walse-Dominguez is an expat living in the Bay Area. He writes about issues of LGBT rights, as well as income and housing inequality and the homeless youth. He lives with his husband and their imaginary dog. Please give a warm welcome to Jacob.
Hi. I guess I'm ready. Hi. Hi. Okay. So yeah, I didn't time this, so feel free to wait badly. Yeah. Okay. I'll read a few poems. Some from my thesis, and yeah. Okay. The first one is a series of interrogative statements for the self-aware millennial. If money were no object, what would you do instead? Do you remember when you began to want? What was it that you forgot again? Look through your pockets, keys, phone, wallet, a receipt, a piece of paper. What is the environment good for? What is the meaning of your youth? Think about the best Snapchat you have ever sent. Did it have your face in it? Who is the aspirational Tinder match? If you answer a potential date in pure emoji speak, does that increase or decrease the chances of an actual date happening? Do you have a favorite dive bar? Do you have a favorite book? Do you have a favorite dish? Do you have a favorite company? What brand speaks to you the most? If you could aspire to be an image, what would you do to avoid it? Think about the one thing you would truly die for. Imagine your grisly death. Pick any or all of the choices. Tortured mutilation, summary execution, a long, slow starvation, exposure to the elements, poison, heartbreak, saltwater drowning, shark bait, dinner for a pool of alligators, serial rape and murder, political disappearance. Think about what you have to wake up for. Obligations, duty, need. What is it? Who told you to pick between one and the other? Who told you that you could have both? Have you ignored a stranger today? Have you listened to a stranger's story today? What makes a Humans of New York post on the story of a random stranger on the street better than the one on the bus or the sidewalk of your own city? Do you remember when you began to want? What did you want first off? The first thing you remember wanting the most. What was it? The next one is called Foxes. 1. I remember him telling me that in the offices of Facebook, a litter of baby foxes were born. He described their bodies, tender, velvet-furred, young. The company celebrated their births by creating a fox-themed sticker pack in the Messages app. I imagined the exaltation. They gave out t-shirts to employees, held little parties celebrating these little foxes, newly exposed to the world. Everybody was happy to know that these babies existed. Once in a while, an employee would coo in joy whenever one of the little animals passed by. During afternoon walks, 1 or 2 programmers would excitedly exclaim, "Look, one of them," as a little orange scarlet blur jumps behind some bushes. For a week or so, someone would bring up the little things over lunch, the echoes of their conversation bouncing around the high-ceilinged, glass-walled lunchroom, overlooking a magnificent view of the mountains. 2. Like many small animals that encroach upon urbane spaces, foxes are often considered as pests, nuisances that require the services of an exterminator. "Hello, is this the number for the pest exterminator? There's a bunch of foxes that keep rummaging inside our trash. They keep killing our chickens. They're not nice to have around." Many people pay top dollar for these services to ensure that the fox infestation is gone for good. Otherwise, they are easily ignored, considered a little rabid, unless they dig dens in the surrounding property. I sometimes imagine the foxes being able to smell old dens, buried somewhere beneath the concrete, hidden beside public trees, small foxes digging holes here and there, trying to survive. 3. It's an animal instinct. If you lived in one place your entire life, you will fight to keep staying. Such is the nature of homes. You cannot give up your safe space without a fight. I guess this is why humans try to kill off foxes, or why foxes insist on staying. Vermins on either side. "You have taken our homes," I imagine the foxes angrily chirping at those humans as they are carted off, fed poison, caught in tiny traps, their lithe, red bodies struggling,
Heavy breathing, writhing, 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 gone. Little fox communities slowly killed off. Of course they are afraid. Some adapt, take on names as resident urban carnivores, slyly keeping stable populations underneath and within city boundaries. They hide so well that you can never tell they are there. Some of them don't manage, are somehow disposed of, their bellies bloated or chests busted open. 4. The last thing I heard about those foxes was that they died off. The cars that entered in and out of the Facebook compound ran over them, one at a time. Sometimes, I think about those baby foxes, how happily they were celebrated, almost welcomed. How after their births, other things took center stage and they were slowly forgotten. Outside, a pair of young foxes lay on the concrete with their heads smashed open like a blood orange, the juices spread on the gray ground, exactly like the one that a senior computer engineer is just opening at his table, mouth salivating, the fox is forgotten. 5. The rest of San Francisco huddles around some spaces. Some talk about the warmth of an old apartment, maybe the remembrance of having 2 to 3 meals a day. If they close their eyes hard enough, they can even remember what it was like to open their mailbox and look at the myriad spam notes. Someone else is opening that mailbox now. Someone else throwing those letters away. A young programmer new to the city, walking in their old kitchen, getting the first of many housewarming parties all set up. Thanks, I'll read my last poem. This is new and untitled. 1. A young black man ambles onto our car in BART. He's got a backpack on, towels, hoodie, and a mat rolled together, secured on top of his rucksack, the smell of a few days evident. He sits on the disabled seating as a visiting white, old couple, newly landed for their vacation to San Francisco, eye him warily. Their bodies coil into themselves, the woman pulling out her tour book, frantic, trying to play it cool, making out their plans for the next day as the man sheds his bag on the seat, stands up, makes his way to the bicycle racks in the car, takes a deep breath, gets ready to speak. 2. If only he had complied with the police. If only he had studied hard. If only he had listened to the faculty. If only he had let it slide. If only he had tried harder. Doesn't he know hard work would have helped? If only he tried to speak less ghetto. If only he had a gun. If only he didn't have a gun. If only he stayed in school. If only he had. If only. 3. It's 11:30 p.m. and BART is screechy. We all just want to get home or to our rooms. We're tired, we're cranky. My husband nurses a migraine and tries to lean on me, tries to get some sleep. The visiting white couple's eye looks droopy. The man behind them watches the cement of the tunnels blur together. The dim fluorescent lights flicker. The car gives a tired little shake. A man enters at the station, rumpled, carrying his briefcase, speaking Spanish into his headset, telling someone he is about to head on home. The young black man is still standing there, having waited for the screeching to stop. He wants to say something, is trying to say something, and no one wants to listen. 4. 12 on a Sunday night in downtown Berkeley, 50 degrees Fahrenheit, slight breeze. If I take my jacket off, goosebumps down my spine, across my chest. Underneath the window of a YMCA, on my way to BART, I almost walked into him. Snoring soundly in a sleeping bag, a young black man wearing a button-down has pushed himself onto the wall beneath the awning. A wind blows by and makes me gather myself into my jacket. In his sleep, he mumbles and sinks deeper into his cocoon, adjusting his makeshift pillow, a standard nylon bag on top of a decent pair of brown leather shoes, and angles it for safekeeping. It occurs to me that tomorrow is Monday morning, the kind of day we wake up early to go to our daily things, schools, jobs. It amazes me that whoever will talk to this man tomorrow will never know that he has nowhere to sleep at night, that if that person knew that they had no home, they may not even be having an interview at all. 5. The man is still trying to say something, and when the train stops screeching, he finally begins. It's hard, he says, for someone who looks like me to ask for help. He idly fingers the tear on the shoulder of his sweater as he says this. I'm reaching out, he says, to all of you because the train screeches to a halt. The BART driver fake apologizes for the delay. It's almost midnight and we just want to go home. The man begins his speech anew, asks people if they can conceive of living like him. He is trying to say something, and we don't know how to say it too. 6. In class, a young black man tells the professor that the poems we are reading no longer surprises him. Growing up in San Francisco, he tells us the story of his best friend, parked outside his own house, chatting on the phone. The sun was turning dark. They went their separate ways, ready to see each other tomorrow. He wanted to talk to someone on the phone. The police were keeping the streets safe, the blue-red flashing across the houses into their windows. The people in this neighborhood are used to it by now, he says matter-of-factly. The police are always here. His mother never knew he was just outside, was sure he was just somewhere else that night. No one thought anything about the gunshot at first, in those late hours. I imagined the mother peeking out of her windows and seeing the police surrounding their car, a policeman on the sidewalk writing his notes, the splatter on the windshields, the red flashing into her eyes, the red flashing onto his unseeing eyes. The police said they thought he fit the description of someone they knew, someone they were looking for. He looked suspicious in a darkened car, parked outside the houses at night with a phone in his hand. He looked suspicious. He was my son, she says. In my mind's eye, I imagine her saying anything, but the student has cut his story short. There is too much to remember. We return to the book. He adjusts his hoodie, pulls it back on. 7. Someone finally listens to the man. It's when he apologetically takes his things from the seats, apologizes for taking up space and taking up time. It's when he's made a pile on the floor and slumped down, dejected. When he's proven his harmlessness. I am ashamed of our unfounded fear. Thank you.